Hey YouTube, it's Matt with Olympus Reptiles. We're going to continue talking about our views on this business or this industry or this hobby or whatever one of the 14 billion names you want to call it. And we're going to kind of cover that because I think we get lost in our terms a little bit. So I kind of gave you a teaser on our last video. This video is going to be about who are you, right? This doesn't mean are you Canova or are you us or are you brand new, or are you Bart. It doesn't mean that. What it really means is who are you in this hobby? What do you want to be? It shouldn't really be who are you. You know what? Who are you is a really bad thing to name it. Let's get rid of that. One thing I think that you got to understand when you come into this as more than just a keeper. Okay? You're not just a reptile keeper at this point. This is for those people who think they want to be more than just a keeper. And by more than just a keeper, I mean you want to breed and you want to sell animals. That doesn't mean sell for a profit. Like we talked, there's all different levels of that. We've already done a video on that. We ain't going to reinvent the fucking wheel here. But this is for people who don't know, what they are. This is something that's fair. It's not who are you, because that says, I know who I am. I'm already here. It should be who do you want to be? That's what the question should be. Who do you want to be? This isn't a person. This isn't like, oh man, you should be like us, or oh man, you should be like them, or oh, it ain't that. I don't got the hubris to think everybody should want to be like me, although it ain't such a bad gig. But anyway, who do you want to be? And what I mean by that is we talked in our last video about when to get rid of females. We talked about time being a factor. We talked about size being a factor. We're talking about a scale. When you go through YouTube, one thing that's going to be challenging, depending on where you want to be, is all you're going to see is scale. What I mean by scale is people who are trying to grow a business, right? People like us who want to breed 100 snakes or who are wanting to run a business of some size, or whatnot. And that ain't everybody. And that's okay not to be that. Sometimes I think we get to this point where you feel, like not you, but people in general, as I'm talking to people, I can't think about consciousness, so people feel like, this is what I have to do. This is the next logical step. And I'm here to tell you, that's bullshit. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be a business. You don't have to be this large of a business. It is okay to be less than a business. It is okay to be a hobby. It is okay to be a small business and a small business only. And it's okay to be a medium size, like what we want to be. And it's okay to want to be bigger and be, say, Canova size. And it's okay if you have aspirations that you want to run a snake facility the size of Nerd or Barchek's, where you've got thousands upon thousands of snakes and a bunch of employees and all that. If that's what you want to do, that's okay too. There's not a right nor wrong answer. One is no more important or better than the other. That's what you've got to understand. The best one, the best one out of all that really depends on this. What do you want to be? Now, when you pick what you want to be, you're not stuck there. You can move around. This isn't like you make a decision that's the only you can ever be. I'm not saying that situation and things in life are going to dictate a difference. But to me, you got several things. And I wrote down two that were kind of right there. We'll say boutique. Boutique. That's because it's a fun word. Boutique versus volume versus, I'll say, large scale. This is going to be looking at it from when you should get rid of your females. And all of these, okay, no matter which one you choose that you want to be, there's kind of some sizes in there, right? There's kind of some sizes in there. What I mean by that is, if we pick on just boutique, okay? What I mean by a boutique breeder is this is somebody who, for the most part, they want to do this as a hobby. You know what I mean? They're not interested in coming to this as their job every single day. And that doesn't mean they don't want to make money. They may want to breed some high-end stuff and some whatever, Again, personally, I don't feel boutique is a good way to go if you want this to be your sole level of income. I know people are going to struggle with that because they're like, well, this snake, I know a guy, or I sold this snake. I don't fucking care. I get that. Tell your story, whatever. Yank, yank, yank. We're all going to move on because nobody gives a shit. The reason I'm telling you that boutique is not going to be where you want to be if you want this to be your business is because those prices fluctuate. This market changes too much, and that's when you're going to start project jumping because you're constantly trying to stay with that, and it's going to catch up to you, and you're going to burn through funds. So boutique isn't bad. Boutique is if you want to small scale, right? This is small scale. This should be pet projects. That's what this should be. Whether that's, whether that's something you just want to make or, you want to hit this goal or whatever. There should be some pet. When I say pet projects, I'm not meaning pet animals. I mean those projects that are near and dear to your heart. That's what we're talking about. Pet's kind of a bad choice of words in this industry because we could be talking about a pet animal. No, projects that are important to you. You can have these when you're doing volume, right? But when you... This should be your focus. When you're doing volume, this is the side, okay? When you're doing boutique, this is the main focus. This is why you're there. You're there to work on the projects you want to work on. This is important, not the focus though, right? If you're running a boutique, that's not the focus. You may want to cover your costs. You may want to make a little money. It may be one of those things, maybe one year you make really good money. That's a really great year. Maybe a few years down the road, you don't make as good of money. And you got to be okay with that. This shouldn't be your main focus. Money is not going to be the main focus of boutique. If you get it, great. It's fucking awesome. I'm not saying they can't make money this way. What I'm saying is it ain't very stable this way, or not as stable. Because these are also the people you see that have put all their eggs in this basket of boutique breeding, and they want this to be their main focus, and they want to do it because it's a little on the lazy side. And what I mean by that is because they don't want another job. They want to breed 20 snakes. They want to make a living that way. Sounds great, right? It's not a lot of work. I mean, a collection of 20 snakes I can take care of, like, dicking off for a few hours a week. I mean, it's not hard. It's not at all. It's easy. But it's not very stable, so it runs into issues when the market changes. Boutique is great if it's something that, like, hey, maybe you got another career you really like, something you're doing with your kids, or just a project you want to work. And like I say, money's not the main focus. Extra money, this is extra money, like a side hustle, things like that. This is great. So what is boutique? Well, there's not going to be a set number of snakes where I tell you this, anything more than this is volume. Boutique more is about the result, right? If you're boutique breeding, you're looking for a very focused result. This is how I see it anyway. Meaning, that time constraint for you is going to be a thing. That size constraint for you is going to be a thing. You're not going to want to add a lot more animals because you're not really wanting to produce 4, 5, 600, 1,000 babies. You're wanting to produce, maybe 30, 40 babies, maybe 50, 60 babies. I don't know. That's it. You're not wanting to produce a whole ton, but you're wanting to produce what you want to produce. That's what we're talking about for boutique. This is a side hustle thing. So if you're here, your female focus, as opposed to kind of what we said, we kind of rank those things that are important to us and how we choose what we're going to get rid of and when, which is we never get rid of an adult female that can produce until we're out of one of those two things. You're not going to necessarily want to add space because of time constraints. So, you may say, okay, well, I only want to have 15 clutches a year, so I'm only going to keep 20 females. Anything over that, I'm going to start parting with things that I don't want to keep, that don't fit my project, or, oh, I've done this a few times, I want to go in this different direction because I'm kind of bored with this project, right? So you're going to go somewhere else, and you're going to be constantly a little bit in flux and doing new things and making some really cool shit. From a buyer's standpoint, I like buying from people who do boutique breeding, because people who do boutique breeding, if you go there, one, they're not always going to have everything, but if you, and a great example of a large, well, I don't want to say it's boutique, it's more of a volume to this point, but you can focus when you do volume too. But when you're buying from somebody who does boutique breeding, they only have that handful of animals, though their projects near and dear to their heart, you can really see the hand selection and the passion that goes into that. When I talk about it's lazy, it's not lazy in what they do, it's lazy, and this is an idea of how I'm going to make my living, because I don't want to put much work into it, so I only want to take care of 20 snakes. That's the get-rich-quick scheme that doesn't last. I've seen a lot of people get here to get rich quick, and I've never seen them get rich quick and still only have like 15 snakes. They're not there. Just throwing that out. But you'll see people do a lot of really awesome shit in this realm. This is a great realm of people to buy from. They're usually very knowledgeable about what they're working with. They're knowledgeable about their animals. Because here's the thing, if they've been around a while doing this and making that customer base where they've been doing this for a while and surviving in this realm, they're really good at what they do. So it's okay to be a boutique breeder. Nothing wrong with it. Just know what that role entails. So let's say you say, okay, I'm going to put a little faith in what Matt's saying here. Pretend he's not a complete fucking moron. And I want to do this for a living. I want to do this for a business one day. I know it's going to take me a while to get there, or I've got a bunch of money to invest. I'm going to try to get there. However you're going to do it, that's irrelevant for this conversation. But I don't really want to manage a company. I don't want to manage 15 people. Hi, welcome. That's me. I feel you. That's where you're a volume breeder. Okay? Volume. If you are a volume breeder, then you should be focused on your infrastructure right away. Right? That becomes very important. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to try to spell while I'm up here. Spelling is not actually a sign of intelligence. That's why I suck at it. So you got to be focused on that. You should never, let me say this, if you're going to be volume breeding, you should not be parting with adult females unless you absolutely are out of space or you're absolutely out of time. And if you're out of time, you should be planning on a way to get more time to do that. Like, that's the world we live in, because you want to get to the volume that you need to do to make this your prime source of income. Maybe not your only source of income, but you want this to be your prime source of income. I want to sit there one day where this is what Kurt and I do. So for there, you shouldn't be partying with females. Pet projects, can you have them? Sure can. I've got plenty of them. We have a lot around here, probably more than we should. Yes, this is okay, but this is a side hustle now. This is side, not main focus. Numbers. That's the main focus. And what I'm going to get at is you're always eventually going to fill up space, and you're going to get rid of females that produce lower end things and all of that. But you're going to want to produce numbers so you can constantly be out there selling animals, getting that income in, building that customer base, bringing new stuff in from what you buy, new males, things like that to produce. And we'll get into when to get rid of, when to keep your males thing later on, because it is different than your females in my world. But numbers are very important. This is the number one thing, right? You can't be a volume breeder and produce 20 clutches or 10 clutches. You're not going to be, you need to be increasing that. One year you're doing 10, that's cool. Next year you're doing maybe 15, then 20, then 25. You need to slowly going up to get to the point you want. You do need to know what your limit is. Okay? For us, that means work it slow till we get there. We just said the other day we want to breed about 120 females. We may get to where we're doing 100 and be like, okay, fuck, man, this is all we can handle. We don't want any more. And we may stop there. We're still going to be producing as much volume as we can. If we were a boutique breeder, that's when we're partying with females, because we just simply don't have the time. It doesn't fit our project anymore. Would bring some in that fits our project. But here, and you're going to say, wait a minute, man, these assholes drive down the price because they're just producing to sell. Yeah, but you know what? They're producing to make money. Your price is not the concern of a volume breeder. A volume breeder, again, he's going to want to make things that are ranging from that area, maybe that $200 to $300 area, up to those thousands of dollars of animals. All of that, high, mid, low, is going to be in play for that volume breeder. This means more stability. So I'm not focused on just this and the whims of a few projects, right? I got a diversified collection. I can do whatever the hell I want. Maybe I have a main focus, like John Dogg's main focus is Xanthic, but there's a shit ton of other genes in there he has. So even as Xanthic does this, he's still going to be fine because he's diversified. It's not just one single project where I'm going to make a Firefly Xanthic and I'm going to move on, where the boutique breeder maybe is only doing 4 or 5 things. So there's high, there's mid, there's low. You're going to be well protected in this. You're probably going to want to produce a good number of clutches. You should be producing hundreds of babies a year. Hundreds. Several hundred in a good time. For us, we want to be producing around 500 to 600 a year, a little more than that possibly. That's kind of what we're looking at if we're breeding 120 females. Actually, we'd hope to have about 100 clutches with about a 6 egg average for good eggs, so about 600 babies a year. That's the long-term goal. We're not doing that now. That's where we want to be. That's pretty good volume, okay? That's a volume breeder. Now, is there pluses and cons to being volume? We'll do a versus thing here at the end. So you can kind of, this is again, not a wrong answer. This is more to help you decide if you're getting into this game, where do I want to be or somewhere in between? Because you can kind of be a half-ass boutique / volume in the middle. You know, you can do whatever you want to do. This isn't telling you the right or wrong way. This is letting you make a decision. I know, personal choice. God, it's amazing. Welcome to America. So the next thing we're going to look at is what I would call the, it would be the corporation or business. Not business, it's a bad name. Large scale. Large scale. Now the difference here is they're going to have volume, they're going to have pet projects, they're going to have all that. So you can have a pet project. Yeah. You're going to do a lot of volume, high volume, right? I'm talking about doing, 500 to 600 myself. These guys are going to be making things that are in the 4-figure accounts, okay? There's a lot of them out there, but there's not as many of these as there are volume. There's not as many of anything as there is boutique. It's just the way this business is going to work. They're going to do a very high volume of number of animals, very diversified in their collection. And guess what their main job is? If you're a large volume breeder or volume breeder, your main job is taking care of snakes, picking up sheds, picking up poops, pairing snakes, cutting eggs, setting babies, cleaning babies, and feeding. If you like that kind of stuff, that's not the main job of a large-scale breeder. Their number one is going to be people management. Because to be this large-scale breeder, it will be more than you're going to do on your own. It's going to be more than you're going to do with your business partner. It's going to be more than you're going to do with one guy who's hanging out there helping you out a lot. You're probably going to have a team. You're going to have a team that's going to be probably, you may have 1 or 2 people helping you take care of animals. You're probably going to have somebody helping you deal with phones and like all of that in an office setting or whatnot, or contracting that shit out. And then you're going to probably have to have somebody doing your taxes if you don't. So this is going to be people in business management. That's their main job. They're no longer the guy doing the day-to-day work. They're doing the people drama. That's not a bad thing. Again, I'm not ripping that. It's not the fuck I want to do. But for some people, this is what they want to do. This is what they want to get at. If you're doing social media, you may still be the face of your company. Nothing wrong with that. But trust me, and I'll give you a prime example. You got Kevin from Nerd. Kevin is going to be the face of his company, right? But let's look at Kevin from Nerd really quick. Give you an example of what I'm talking about. Everybody thinks Nerd. They think instantaneously Kevin, right? Nerd equals Kevin. But does it? Kevin's ahead of that. Kevin's knowledge passes through there. A lot of things Kevin does, and it's like weird way to spell it. Sorry, dude. That's better. Passes on through. But Nerd doesn't necessarily completely equal Kevin. Below that, Kevin has Donnie. Or I'm going to spell it that way. That could be wrong. Who handles most of his social media stuff. Love him or hate him. Below that, too, I can't think of their names. Kevin, you know the names of people who work at Kevin's place? Just first names. How many people can you think of that you see working there?
Donnie.
Well, besides Donnie. I know there's more.
I know there's more. I don't actually know
he's got, we'll call them helpers, which might be some high school kids or might be some people who are wanting to get in the hobby. There's probably several of them, and I guarantee you he's probably got somebody who helps in an office. Because Kevin's back there playing guitar, rocking his long hair, showing how nice his Crocs and monitors are while somebody else is answering the damn phone. So, who likes to answer the phone, right? And that doesn't say Kevin will never answer the phone. I'm not saying, and this isn't ripping, but that's how a large scale works. You could take out Kevin and you could replace it with Brian B. It's the same basic setup. He's going to have, well, it wouldn't be Donnie, but he's going to have people working for him that help him get that number of tasks done with that number of animals, that number of things going on. All of those tasks are going to be more than one person can manage themselves. And I use Kevin for an example because I'll prove it to you using Kevin. I want you to think, if you've been at this for several years, not so long ago, Kevin kind of half-assed the social media thing. He'd post when he got a notion, but he really didn't dedicate a lot of time or effort to it. Knew it was something he needed to do, just didn't have the time. So what did Kevin do? Hired Donnie. And you saw Kevin's social media explode because somebody else could take that task on to assist with that in the vision of Kevin. Most of the time, I think. Sometimes I think Kevin just goes like, get it done. I don't know. But anyway, like you have to have that with that large scale company. You're going to have help. So let's plus and minus it. Because there is advantages and disadvantages to everything. So if you have, start a boutique. Boutique. Pluses, it's small scale. Freedom. You get to do what you want, right? Freedom of projects. Whatever you want to do, you can kind of do. It's all right there. It's self-reliant. And because if you're doing this right, it's not your main source of income that you have to have. It's just kind of like extra. It is low pressure. What that means is if that female that can drop that clutch and you're only having a handful of clutches and that clutch is going to be that $14,000 clutch that's going to help you get through the year, doesn't go and reabsorbs, you're like, damn, that sucks. But you still know where your food's coming from. If you're relying on this and something happens, well, you're fucked, right? So, that's just how that works. So there's the pluses. Minuses. Not stable income. Again, that's why we're not relying on it, right? You're limited by number. What I mean by that is you can still make whatever project you want because you have the freedom of projects here, right? But you only have room or time for a handful of snakes, so you're limited on how many things you can be working on at once. You're going to have to kind of dedicate to one thing or a couple things, and then when you're done with that, move on. So you are limited by number and how many things you can have going on. That's it, y'all. I cannot think of any more negatives to being a boutique breeder, man. There's not a lot. This is a really, really fun place to be. If you want to be in this purely for the fun, this is the most fun spot. It truly is. So then let's go volume. Volume. Man, plus, you get lots of animals, right? A lot of us have a problem. It's like Lay's potato chips. You don't want 1 ball python or 5 ball pythons or 10 ball pythons. And raise your hand if you're one of those that said, you know what, I think I just want to have like 10 or 15, and then another 90 later, here you are, right? Hi, how you doing? I'm Matt, and I have a ball python addiction. That's where we're at. Actually, then turned into rattlesnakes. I don't know how the hell that happened still. Lots of animals. You get to have a lot of diversity in your collection, which is, guys, that is a ton of fun. So I really like doing this. This is perfect. Plus, good income possibility. There is a good income opportunity here. You have a chance to make some money. I mean, you really do. If people couldn't make money at this, well, there wouldn't be anybody doing it like this. And there are a number of people who do this. It's more than 1 or 2. There's probably more people than we actually know because everybody's super active on social media. So people are pretty quiet. I can think of a dude out of Kansas City right now. I'm going to drop his name. Hopefully, I don't get pissed. I don't know how much he breeds, but Eric Kearney does a pretty good volumes. A lot of people, unless they're in Kansas City, haven't heard of that guy. He does a lot of breeding. I couldn't tell you if he's in the boutique or the volume because I really don't know how much shit he has. But what my point is, there's more people out there who are successful at this than you realize because they're not all plastering their face all over YouTube and Instagram and being entirely social media attention whores like I am. How are you? So there's good income opportunity here. Lots of projects, man. You can really, go wherever, whatever you want to do. It's all there, it's all there. And it's also all your control. Man, that's one of the best parts right there because, maybe it's like, in our case, not all my control, but it's all our control. It's what Kurt and I want to do, and also Caleb, now that he's helping us a lot. He gets some say in some of the things and thought processes. At the end of the day, it's in our control. I don't have to. If something goes south, it's because we fucked it up. Something's successful, it's because we were successful. It's not because I hired, some dildo and he screwed everything up. Like, we'll get to our next one. some of the negatives. Very time consuming, right? You're going to be married to this. It's going to get in the way of some things. I get home at 10 o'clock or later a lot of nights because I'm working. You know, Kurt gets home late a lot of nights because he's working. This is very time consuming. It does take away from family and some things you want to do. But that's how the grind is, man. It's a job. It's a job. You're supposed to do that. It's very time consuming. You know, what are some other negatives, Kurt, to this? Oh, overhead. This gets to a point that you can't just stop. And what I mean is here, if you get out of it, you only got a handful. It's probably in a room in your house or something like that. You can get out of here. When you're doing volume, you're probably no longer in a room in your house. You've probably kind of gone out of that. You know, you may be taking up half your home if you got a big home which sits all in the basement, but there's a very good thing or a very good chance that you either have a building, a place you rent, a place you've built, or a separate house like we have or something like that, where you have bills to pay on that, and you can't just quit. Kurt and I couldn't just go, you know what? Fuck social media and snakes. We're done. We're out tomorrow and not have repercussions. Now, we could sell all of this easily for enough to cover what we owe and make a nice healthy profit doing so, but it would take a while, and in the meantime we'd be having to pay the overhead on things, which kind of sucks, right? You've got bills to pay now. I mean, they have to keep eating until they're sold. There's all of those things that have to go into this, whereas here you could probably go get rid of that collection in about 2 months time, even piecing it out. Not so much here. You're going to be going to a lot of shows, doing a lot of things, buying a lot of tables, doing a lot of work just to part with this thing. So there's a lot of overhead, a lot of time consuming on there. You know, 3, it is a negative. You have to rely on this at this point. You know, up here, you don't have to. You have to rely on it. You have to produce. That's why you need the volume. Because if something doesn't go, something else does. It's not devastating. You know, we have some clutches this year that could draw a very nice income per clutch. But if it doesn't go, yeah, it sucks. It ain't devastating. You know, we've got some dinker stuff we're working on trying to prove a new gene. Be really awesome if it proves out. If it doesn't, this sucks. But it's not devastating. That's the difference here. You have to rely on it, but you have to produce. You can't just, well, I'm only going to do a little this year. No, this is, you're living this. So now let's go with this large scale. I'd say, man, you have all the animals, right? There ain't something you're not in. You don't want to be in. Whether it's hots, whether it's lizards, whether it's, you know, whatever. About to say something really off killer, I won't. But you're in anything you want to be in. You know, there's no limits because you have such a large scale. You have people to help you do that. All of those things. There is a great income opportunity here. If you're able to get to that point and have that business compete with those people who do that at that top level, you know, your Bryans, your Nerds, your what's the dude in Oklahoma, Bob Clark back in the day and still to some extent now, some of those guys who are producing, and I know I'm leaving Bob View, some of those guys who are producing at a really large scale and very, very successful at it, there is a great income potential there, okay? There is. No lies about it, so that's great. Man, you can, and if you don't believe me, just take your happy ass down to Florida one time, okay? And go to that NARBC show and look for those weirdos dressed like pandas. They're going to stick out because they'll be wearing panda costumes. And watch how much they're donating to charity. You can't possibly donate like that to charity unless there's a good income coming in. So look for the panda folks, see this, understand there's a good potential for income there if you're at a large scale. And Bob may be more volume than large scale. I don't know exactly how much he produces, but he's just a great example because he gives a lot of that away, which is pretty awesome. So great income potential there. So that's one of the things that's positive on a large scale. Also, I mean, you're almost limitless in projects, right? Limitless. So you're saying, well, shit, I can make all the money. I can have all the animals. I'm limitless in projects. Where's the negative here? Well, let's get to there. I got to keep checking, so I got to go live here in about 20 minutes to sell a snake on Patreon. Negatives. You are a people manager. For me, that's a negative. I didn't wake up one day and decide I wanted to breed snakes to manage people. It's not what I did. I decided I wanted to breed snakes. I wanted to work with the animals themselves. So for me, that's a negative. For some people, it's not, but for me, that's a negative. You are reliant on others. What I mean is, if you get a moron for an employee, our chain is only as strong as the weakest link, they like to say, right? I think there's even a game show. But that is true, man. And you may say, if I get a stupid employee, I'm just going to fire his ass. That's great. Are you going to get that done before he does a lot of damage? Before he screws up something and kills half your collection? Before he half-asses some of the other stuff he needs to do and spreads the disease throughout everything? Or before he steals you blind? All of those things have happened to some of these guys who do a large scale. I'm not going to name drop who is happening like that. You can figure it out for yourself or do your own research. But a lot of the times when you hear somebody who's at a large scale, okay, having major problems, or having issues with animals, or their treatment, or their health, or all of that, it's because they are having to be relying on others and end up with a shit employee. And you don't know that employee's shit until he does shit work. And then when you fire that shit employee, they can go talk shit about how your place is horrible, even though they're the reason it's horrible. And because social media likes to focus on the negative, it's going to get traction. Seen it happen, not really a cool thing. But you are relying on others. That's just it. You are. Own your soul. At least if I was doing it. You may get the point that somebody else managed it all for you and all that, but I don't think most people ever get there. My great example is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk doesn't breed snakes, thank God, because we would all be out of a job. He would just breed all the snakes better than all of us because he's Elon fucking Musk. But he runs a company called Boring Company, another company called Tesla, and I have to hear about Elon Musk because camera guy Kurt loves him some Elon Musk. This is the richest man in the world, most of the time, between him and Jeff Bezos, and he's sleeping on the factory floor a lot. He's working constantly. We're having children out of wedlock with 47 different women, but he's working constantly because his businesses really own his soul. When it gets to that point, are you really getting to enjoy it? No, you're chasing around people, you're looking for the next thing, and most people who do that, not only are they, they feel responsible. If you're a good large-scale breeder or owner of any business and you have these 15 people working for you, you should feel partly responsible for them, right? Yeah, I'm running this business. If I screw this up or I don't put in my full effort, I'm going to take these 15 people working for me that I'm hoping to pay a living wage, hoping to help support their families through our efforts, and I'm going to screw it over every single one of those families. And I don't know about you, but for me, I don't sleep well doing that. So it owns your soul, man. It really would have to own your soul because not only are you reliant on others, others are reliant on you. Here, I'm relying on myself and just me and my partners who are doing the work. Not here. Man, people's children relying on me. People's spouses are relying on me. Little tiny Tim, whose dad didn't want to work on Christmas, is relying on me to get his big turkey, and I'm a Scrooge asshole. Like, whatever it may be, those people are relying on you. So that, to me, is a negative because it's a lot more pressure. If you want that, that's great. I don't want that. I would rather be more free instead of feeling that pressure of I've got to be sleeping on the factory floor because all these people are reliant on me to feed them. I've had to have others relying on me before, in really bad situations sometimes with not on their income, but on them still breathing. And that's great. I've done it. I'm done with it. There's a reason why I want to be done with that shit. So that's a negative. All right, that is kind of my thing. Not one of these is better or worse. It depends on where you want to be. But you need to decide what you want to be. And as you make that decision, you need to focus on getting there. Because if you don't know what you want to be and you're bouncing around all the time, you got no fucking direction. If you got no direction, you're not going to get where you're going, right? This is your map. Pick where you want to be in this and go there. That doesn't mean you can't say you want to be boutique and then change, so I want to go all the way down here. You can do that, and then you can change your direction. But you need to have a direction that you're working towards in this. If not, you're just flapping around in a big ocean, making a lot of noise, waiting for the shark to eat you. Swim somewhere. Figure out where you want to be and go get there. Kurt, anything you want to add?
No.
Woo! Caleb, what about you?
Nope.
I think Caleb is zoning off on his phone, going, "This guy's just rambling on, saying some crazy shit." All right, let me ask you guys this: when you first got into this, Kurt, where did you think you wanted to be? Boutique, volume, or large scale?
Probably volume.
Volume. Caleb, where do you want to put yourself? Boutique, volume, or large scale?
Large scale.
You want to be large scale?
Always have, always will.
Yeah, fuck that. I am also with volume. There's been times I thought boutique would be all right, but volume's where I really want to be. You know, as I kind of got into it. Started off here when I first started, and I went to here because I wanted to make this a business. I never wanted this because I don't want to be in charge of people. People as a collective are stupid. Okay, and I know I'm talking to probably at least 5 of you watching this right now. That doesn't mean that you're dumb. But when you get people together, one of them is going to screw me over because they're stupid, and then I have to not commit violent crimes. I don't want to be a violent crime, so we're not going to do that. I'm going to stay here. All right, guys, this is all I got. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.